Let's talk Torah. So I wanted to point to a different facet of this week's Parsha that we haven't looked at yet. Parshat VaYeitzei has a lot to say about interpersonal relationships, and we do focus, for all the right reasons, on what it is for Jacob to try to establish healthy relationships at all, given that he has broken so many of the relationships that he began with in his family of origin, and that he has really struggled to have a sense of self. We'll see that continue when he wrestles with angels and with God, and then reconciles in a certain sense with his brother, but there's a lot going on there. We also see the struggle between Leah and Rachel, what it is to be in a family that seems to only have enough love for one, and then both of them married to one person, which of course in modern terminology makes no sense. In the Bible, in the Torah, it was a common practice, and it's not simple, to say the least. Again, a scarcity of love seems to animate their relationship. And then the brothers and sister who are born from those relationships are very complicated as well. But there's one part of this week's Parsha that deals with interpersonal relationships which doesn't really get enough attention. My teacher, my friend, Jeremy Burton, who is an incredible and heroic social justice activist and communal leader out of Boston, heading the JCRC there and doing incredible work in the world, points to a part of this parsha where Lavan, who is Rachel and Leah's father, hires Jacob, and Jacob's wages will be the right to marry Lavan's daughter. Then turns out daughters. Again, complicated. But when Lavan says to Jacob, "Name your wages," it all goes downhill from there, as Jeremy Burton points out. Rambam points to a very interesting part of the story, which is that the language in the Parsha for the wages goes like this: "We shall give you the other daughter. Also for the service you shall serve with me yet another 7 years." That's after Lavan has tricked Jacob, and Jacob has married Leah by accident. And then Jacob says, "You tricked me." Lavan's response is what I just read. I'm going to read it again. "We shall give you the other daughter for the service you shall serve with me yet another 7 years," which means Jacob will be working for 14 years in order to marry Rachel, who he wanted to marry in the first place. Jeremy Burton, in his commentary, quotes Nechama Leibovitz, a giant of Torah in the last century, who offers this explanation. Nechama Leibovitz, in turn, quotes Rambam, Maimonides, that Lavan spoke with guile. He told Jacob that things were not done this way in our place. Remember, he said, "We shall give you." It's a common language. It's a plurality. Things are not done like that here, implying that the community would not let him act like that since it violated their conventions. One of the things we learn when we really study, which means in this case for me, I turn to Jeremy. Jeremy learns from Nechama Leibovitz. Nechama Leibovitz is quoting Rambam, Maimonides. In this Shalshelet Kabbalah, in this chain of tradition, we see that the Torah can be used to describe social conventions that still exist to this day. Why, until recently, was it not possible for gay people to get married in the United States? Because of social convention and an understanding of morality that had not yet reached the place that we reached with the Supreme Court decision years ago, and with the new law, the Respect for Marriage Act, that, please God, will be signed into law very soon because it passed through the Senate in a bipartisan way. Another way of saying this, I can quote my teacher, Rabbi Judy Hauptman. When we were fighting for marriage equality, when I was a rabbi in Boston, and also in the conservative movement in Judaism, which is where I was ordained, the language was, "This isn't how we do things." It was a very common language. This is the way things are and the way things have been. Rabbi Hauptman pointed to the way halakha, Jewish law, is encoded in our code of Jewish law called the Shulchan Aruch. It was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo in 1563. It's the basis upon which modern Jewish law has been derived ever since. And he himself traced it earlier than that, but that's for a different conversation. And if you look in the code of Jewish law, there is a Sephardic code and an Ashkenazi code. Often we think that the Shulchan Aruch, which was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, is a Sephardic collection, and the comment on it, the gloss by Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, typically called the Ramah, is the Ashkenazi one. So when someone looks for an answer to a Jewish legal question, they say, well, the Sephardic answer is this, and the Ashkenazi answer is this, and let's see how it's continued ever since. But Rabbi Hauptman points to actually the language that the legal officials, that those authorities used. The Sephardic authority, Rabbi Yosef Karo, didn't always use Sephardic authorities when he came to his conclusions. He actually used the language v'chach haminhag hapashut. And this is the widespread practice. Meaning what he was basing law on was both textual precedent and current practice. Let's return to our conversation. Jeremy Burton, quoting Nechama Leibowitz, quoting Rambam, is saying that when Lavan wanted to deceive Jacob, he said, but that's not how we do it. When we want to adjudicate, we can use Rabbi Yosef Karo's language. This is the current practice. This is what we understand today. And Rabbi Hauptman says about that, if we want to see, this is when we were talking about Jewish marriage equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, she said, if you want to see halachic gay marriage, then perform halachic gay marriage, and one day it'll be written in a book, v'chach haminhag hapashut. This is the current common practice. You see, Lavan was not exceptional in being deceptive regarding labor wages and in the way that he treated his future son-in-law. He was just doing what everyone did. It's important every once in a while for us to look at the texts and not only to say, here is the tension I feel looking at the text, here is the inspiration I take. Sometimes the text reveals that things were a certain way and didn't have to remain that way. In order for us to be part of a Torah journey, sometimes we need to recognize that things as they are not the way things ought to be, and the Torah itself shows precedent for how things might change, and the excuses we often offer when change feels hard. This new Respect for Marriage Act that the Congress has passed and the President, please God, will sign, is a demonstration that things need not remain the way they were for them to be our way. Our way can change. Yes, change is hard. But to argue that change can't happen is to fall into the language of Lavan. We don't do things like that. Well, we didn't. But maybe we should. And using the collective language in an aspirational way, maybe we can. We certainly can. To quote the great Jewish feminist, Blue Greenberg, when there's a rabbinic will, there's a halachic way. When our spiritual leaders believe that something is correct, they will find a way within tradition to make it so. Well, that's true in civil society too. May we be part of an open-eyed, challenging sometimes, honest always, grappling with the way things have been, knowing that they need not remain this way. We have work to do, friends. We have work to do. It's good work. In the language of the great John Lewis of blessed memory, it's good trouble. Let's be part of the good trouble. Here we go, friends. Sing our way into a good day. And maybe I'll see some of you tonight at Central Synagogue if you've registered. We are going to be holding the first JCRC UJA Jewish New York gun violence prevention conversation with representatives from every town, from Mothers for Safe Cities and from Mayor Eric Adams' office. Hope that you can join us there. Okay, take care, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bless you, friends. See you tomorrow. Take care.